Sarah had always loved shopping, and on this bright Saturday morning, she decided to visit one of the local stores in her neighborhood. The store was known for its wide variety of products, and Sarah often found herself browsing there for hours. It was a place where she could relax and forget about the stress of her daily life. As she walked through the automatic doors, the cool air inside welcomed her. She was in the mood for a new kitchen gadget, so she made her way to the section where the cooking tools were displayed. As she moved down the aisle, a man in his early 40s greeted her with a smile. He was the store manager, Tom. She'd seen him a few times before during her visits, but had never really spoken to him. "Good morning. How can I help you today?" Tom asked, his voice friendly enough, but something about his tone felt a bit forced. Sarah smiled back, feeling a little awkward but eager to find what she was looking for. "I'm just browsing for some new kitchen gadgets. I've heard good things about your store," Sarah replied, keeping the conversation light. She didn't want to engage too much, but Tom seemed eager to chat. "Well, you've come to the right place," Tom said, his voice rising a little in excitement. "We have the best collection in town. You'll find everything from blenders to cutting boards." Sarah nodded politely, trying to focus on the shelves in front of her. She picked up a few items, but Tom wasn't finished with his small talk. "You know, it's always great to see a person like you interested in cooking," Tom continued, looking her up and down. "I guess a lot of people don't have the time or skills anymore." Sarah blinked in surprise. She hadn't expected that comment. Tom seemed to think she was someone who was only interested in cooking because of some outdated stereotype, but she didn't respond right away. She simply picked up another item, trying to ignore his tone. Tom, seemingly unaware of how his words might sound, leaned in a bit closer, as though he was about to share some secret information. "You know, cooking's not really for everyone," he said, lowering his voice. "Some people just don't have the right personality for it, you know." Sarah felt a shift in the air. There was something unsettling about his words, but she didn't want to make a scene. She had come here to shop, not to get involved in any awkward situation. So she gave him a polite smile and quickly moved toward the checkout, hoping the conversation would end. But Tom's voice followed her. "I'm just saying, cooking takes a special kind of person. A lot of people just don't have that spark," he added with a chuckle, as if his comment was completely harmless. Sarah felt her stomach tighten. It wasn't the first time she'd heard similar remarks, but hearing it from someone in a position of power, someone who was supposed to be welcoming, made it sting. She quickly paid for her items and left the store, trying to shake off the awkwardness. Little did she know, this would not be the last time she encountered Tom. And as for Tom, he had no idea that his casual, thoughtless words would set off a chain of events that would completely change both of their lives. After that strange encounter in the store, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Tom's comment had stuck in her mind, and the more she thought about it, the more it bothered her. She couldn't believe that a manager of a store, someone who was supposed to be professional, could speak that way. It wasn't just the words he said, but the way he said them. His tone, his smile, it all felt wrong. For the next few weeks, Sarah continued to visit the store. She wasn't sure why she kept going back, but she told herself that she needed certain items and that the store was the best place to find them. Each time she walked in, Tom was there, always ready to greet her with his usual over-enthusiastic smile. At first, she thought he might have forgotten the awkward conversation they had, but it didn't take long for her to realize that his behavior wasn't a one-time thing. Tom seemed to always be around when Sarah was in the store. At first, it wasn't a big deal. But over time, his comments started to feel less like casual chatter and more like judgment. Every time she picked up an item, he would make a remark. "You know, that's a great choice, but only if you're really good at using it," he would say, looking at her with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. At first, Sarah tried to ignore him. She just wanted to shop in peace, but Tom's comments kept coming. "Some people find it hard to cook with that," he said one day as Sarah picked out a set of knives. "It takes skill. Not everyone has it." His words felt like they were aimed at her, as if he was saying she wasn't capable of doing something that seemed so simple. Sarah didn't want to make a scene, so she smiled and moved on. But with each visit, it became harder to ignore his comments. She started to feel like she was being watched, as though Tom was always waiting for her to make a mistake. His judgmental eyes followed her around the store, and his words grew sharper. One day, Sarah went to the store to buy a few ingredients for dinner. She had decided to get a special cooking gadget that she had been eyeing for a while. As she approached the section where the gadgets were, Tom appeared out of nowhere. "Ah, I see you're interested in that one. It's for experienced cooks. Not sure if it's the right choice for someone like you." His words stung, even though he tried to make it sound casual. Sarah was starting to feel really uncomfortable. She wasn't sure if Tom was doing this on purpose or if he was just unaware of how hurtful his words were. But one thing was clear: his behavior was starting to make her dread coming to the store. Over the next few days, Sarah couldn't stop thinking about Tom's attitude. The more she thought about it, the more she realized that she had been putting up with his comments for far too long. She deserved better than this. No one should have to feel judged or uncomfortable just for shopping in a store. It wasn't just about the products. It was about the way she was being treated. It was time to do something about it. One afternoon, Sarah found herself walking into the store again. She had just moved into a new apartment and needed a few things to complete her kitchen. Though she felt uneasy about Tom's usual comments, she tried to push her worries aside. After all, she had to shop, and the store was close by. As Sarah walked through the aisles, she spotted a new brand of cookware she hadn't seen before. She was curious, so she picked up a pan and examined it carefully. But before she could make her decision, she heard Tom's voice behind her. "You're really going to buy that?" Tom asked, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "That pan is for people who actually know how to cook. Not sure it's for beginners." Sarah's face flushed. She was already familiar with Tom's critical tone, but today his words felt different, more hurtful. She had been cooking for years, but Tom didn't seem to care. It was as if he was saying she wasn't capable of making good choices. She took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. She didn't want to make a scene, but his behavior was beginning to get under her skin more than she realized. "I used similar pans before, Tom," Sarah said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I think I'll give it a try." Tom didn't back off. Instead, he chuckled, as if he was talking to someone who didn't understand. "Well, I hope you're ready for disappointment. You'll probably struggle with it. It takes real skill to use that kind of cookware, and not everyone has it." Sarah's patience was wearing thin. She didn't want to argue, but Tom's words were becoming harder to ignore. She knew she had to stand up for herself, but she wasn't sure how. She didn't want to create a scene, but his constant comments were starting to make her feel small. The way he looked at her, the judgment in his eyes, it felt personal, as though he was trying to make her feel inferior for no reason. Feeling frustrated, Sarah walked toward the checkout counter, hoping to quickly finish her shopping. But Tom wasn't finished with her yet. As she placed the items on the counter, he followed her, still making comments under his breath. "That's quite a lot for someone who probably won't even use half of it," he said, still with that same judgmental tone. "You should really stick to simpler things. Cooking isn't for everyone, you know." Something inside Sarah snapped. She had tried so hard to ignore his comments, but this was too much. She looked him directly in the eye, her voice calm but firm. "Tom, I've had enough of your comments. I'm here to buy what I need, and I don't need your judgment. You need to stop." Tom seemed taken aback by her words. He stared at her, a confused expression on his face. Sarah didn't wait for a response. She paid for her items quickly, feeling her frustration rise with every passing second. As she walked out of the store, she felt a wave of relief, but also a sense of injustice. She had been humiliated, made to feel small, all because of Tom's careless words. It was clear that this wasn't just about a few comments anymore. This was about something deeper, something that had been building for weeks. Tom's behavior had crossed a line, and Sarah wasn't going to let it slide any longer. She had to do something about it. After the incident at the store, Sarah felt a mix of anger and frustration. She couldn't believe that she had let Tom treat her the way he did for so long. But now something inside her had changed. She wasn't going to let it go anymore. She had every right to be treated with respect, and it was time to take action. The very next day, Sarah sat down at her desk and decided to write a formal complaint to the store's corporate office. She took her time, carefully describing everything that had happened, the comments Tom had made, the uncomfortable feeling she had each time she entered the store, and how his behavior had made her feel less than. She made sure her words were clear and respectful, knowing that she wanted to be taken seriously. She didn't want to escalate the situation, but she also knew that she couldn't just ignore it any longer. As Sarah typed the letter, she thought about how many other people might have faced the same treatment. How many other customers had felt uncomfortable but never spoke up. She knew she wasn't the only one, and that thought gave her more strength. She wasn't just standing up for herself. She was standing up for anyone who had been made to feel small by Tom's actions. Once the letter was finished, she hit send and took a deep breath. She wasn't sure what would happen next, but she was proud of herself for taking the first step. She had done something many people wouldn't dare to do. She had spoken up. In the days that followed, Sarah didn't hear anything from the company. She tried to forget about it, focusing instead on her daily life. But the thought of Tom's behavior lingered in her mind. She couldn't help but wonder if anything would actually change, or if it would all be swept under the rug. Then, one afternoon, Sarah received a call she wasn't expecting. It was from the corporate office of the store. "Hello, is this Sarah?" the voice on the other end asked. "Yes, it is," Sarah replied, her heart racing slightly. "Who is this?" "This is Lisa from the corporate office," the voice said. "I'm calling regarding your recent complaint. First of all, I want to apologize for the experience you had at our store. We take these matters very seriously, and we appreciate you bringing it to our attention." Sarah felt a sense of relief wash over her. The company was taking her complaint seriously. It was the first step toward change, and it gave her hope that something good might come out of this. "Thank you for following up," Sarah said. "I really appreciate it. I just wanted to make sure that no one else would have to feel the way I did." "We completely understand," Lisa replied. "We are conducting an internal investigation, and we will be addressing the issue with the store manager directly. We will keep you updated on the outcome." Sarah hung up the phone, feeling a small weight lift off her shoulders. She had taken action, and it had been heard. Little did she know, this was just the beginning. Not long after that call, Sarah received another message, but this time, it wasn't about a complaint. It was about something much bigger. A week after Sarah received the call from the corporate office, she couldn't stop thinking about the situation. Although she had filed her complaint and received a positive response, she wasn't sure what would come of it. Would they really make a change? Would Tom face consequences for his actions? Sarah didn't want to get her hopes up, but she couldn't help but feel a bit more hopeful. The company had assured her that they were investigating the issue, and for the first time, she felt like she might actually be heard. One afternoon, as Sarah was at home preparing for her workday, she received another unexpected call. This time, it was from the Human Resources Department of the company. Her heart skipped a beat as she answered the phone. "Hello, is this Sarah?" the voice on the other end asked. "Yes, this is Sarah," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "How can I help you?" "This is Lisa again, from the corporate office," the voice said. "I'm calling with some important news. After reviewing your complaint and the situation at the store, we have decided to offer you a new opportunity within the company." Sarah's heart began to race. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. "What kind of opportunity?" she asked, her voice filled with surprise. "We'd like to offer you a position as the new regional manager overseeing several stores, including the one where you had the issue with Tom," Lisa explained. "We believe you are the right person to lead these stores, and we would like you to bring your vision for a more respectful and inclusive environment to the team." Sarah was speechless. The idea of becoming a manager at the company had never crossed her mind, but suddenly, she was being offered a chance to make a real change. This wasn't just about standing up to Tom. It was about creating a new atmosphere in the store, one where respect and kindness were prioritized. Sarah felt both nervous and excited. This was an opportunity she never expected, but it felt like the right thing to do. "I don't know what to say," Sarah said, still trying to process everything. "This is a huge offer. I'm honored, but I'm also a bit surprised." "We understand this is a big decision," Lisa replied. "Take some time to think it over, but we believe you would be a great fit for the role. Your experience and passion for positive change will make a real difference." After hanging up the phone, Sarah sat in silence for a moment. She couldn't believe what had just happened. She had gone from being a regular customer, dealing with a rude and prejudiced manager, to being offered a position that would give her the power to change the entire store environment. It was a big leap, but something deep inside her told her this was the right step to take. The thought of being in a position to make a difference, to create a place where people felt respected and valued, filled her with determination. She knew this was a rare opportunity, and she wasn't going to let it slip away. Sarah made up her mind. She was going to take the job. The day Sarah arrived at the store as the new regional manager, she felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. It was hard to believe that just a few weeks ago, she was a customer, quietly enduring the rude comments from Tom. Now she was about to walk into the store as his new boss. The thought made her both anxious and determined. As Sarah entered the store, she couldn't help but notice how familiar everything felt. The shelves lined with products she had browsed through. The smell of fresh coffee from the small cafe section. It was the same store, but everything felt different. She was no longer just another shopper. She was the one who would help shape the future of this place. Sarah walked through the aisles, taking note of how things were organized and observing the staff as they went about their work. She smiled and greeted a few of the employees, who seemed polite but a little hesitant. She knew that they must have heard about the change in management, but she could tell that they weren't sure what to expect from her. After all, she was still a new face to them. As Sarah made her way to the back office, she spotted Tom. He was standing near the counter, talking to one of the employees. When their eyes met, Sarah noticed a flicker of recognition in his expression. For a brief moment, he looked confused, then his face slowly changed. It was as if he was trying to place her, but then it clicked. Tom's eyes widened when he realized who she was. Sarah couldn't help but notice the shift in his posture. His smile, which usually came across as forced and patronizing, faded into an awkward expression. He seemed unsure of what to say, unsure of how to react. But Sarah remained calm, her voice steady as she approached him. "Good morning, Tom," Sarah said, extending her hand. "I'm Sarah. I'm the new regional manager for the store." Tom's face went pale. He stammered for a moment, clearly thrown off by the revelation. "Wait, you're the new manager?" he asked, as if trying to confirm that he hadn't heard her wrong. "Yes, I am," Sarah said, her voice firm but friendly. She wanted to show that she was in charge, but she also wanted to remain professional. "I'll be overseeing several stores, including this one. I'm looking forward to working with you and the team." Tom's smile was awkward, his confidence from before now completely gone. He seemed to stumble over his words as he tried to respond. I didn't realize. Welcome, I guess. I'm sure we'll be working well together." Sarah nodded, but she didn't miss the nervousness in his voice. For the first time, she saw him as someone who was no longer in control, no longer the one calling the shots. She could sense that he was uncomfortable, but she didn't let it faze her. She had a job to do, and she was determined to make it work. After their brief exchange, Sarah walked into the office, feeling a sense of calm wash over her. This was it, the beginning of a new chapter. She was in charge now, and it was time to create the kind of work environment she believed in, one of respect, fairness, and kindness. She wasn't just here to manage the store's operations. She was here to make a real change. The first few days after Sarah arrived at the store felt like a whirlwind. There was so much to take in. Meeting the staff, reviewing the store's daily operations, and getting familiar with all the small details that made the place run. But despite her busy schedule, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling of tension whenever Tom was around. He seemed to avoid her at all costs, and whenever their paths crossed, there was a noticeable awkwardness in the air. On the third day of her new role, Sarah decided it was time to address the elephant in the room. She couldn't just let things stay as they were. The uncomfortable silence between her and Tom was becoming impossible to ignore, and Sarah knew it was time to set a tone for their working relationship. She walked through the store and spotted Tom near the back of the shop, sorting through some paperwork. He looked up as she approached, his eyes wide with surprise. It was clear he hadn't expected her to approach him so directly, and for a moment, he hesitated. Sarah stood still for a moment, deciding how best to handle the conversation. She didn't want to make him feel cornered, but she also needed him to understand that the old dynamics were no longer in play. "Tom," she said, her voice calm and steady, "can we talk for a minute?" Tom's nervous smile returned. He nodded and followed her into the staff room, where they could have a private conversation. Once the door was closed, Sarah looked at him directly. "I know things have been a little strange between us," she began. "I want to make sure we're on the same page. I've noticed that you seem uncomfortable around me, and I want to understand why." Tom looked down at the floor, clearly avoiding eye contact. For a moment, Sarah thought he might not respond. But then he spoke, his voice low and unsure. "I didn't expect you to be the new manager, Sarah," he admitted, his tone a little apologetic. "I didn't think you'd be the one overseeing the store. I thought it would be someone else, someone more experienced, I guess. And to be honest, I've made some mistakes." Sarah was surprised by his honesty, though she still felt the tension from their previous encounters. She didn't want to let him off the hook too easily, but she could tell that his words were a sign that he was beginning to realize the weight of his actions. "You've made a lot of comments that were uncomfortable, Tom," Sarah said, trying to keep her voice neutral. "I'm not sure if you were aware of it, but they've hurt me and probably others. I want to make sure this doesn't happen again, for the sake of the team and the store." Tom swallowed hard, looking up at her for the first time. He seemed genuinely remorseful, and Sarah appreciated that. But she also knew that this conversation was just the beginning. There needed to be change, and it was her job to make sure that happened. "I didn't mean to hurt anyone, Sarah," Tom said, his voice quieter now. "I guess I was just, I don't know. I thought I was being helpful, but I see now that I wasn't. I'm sorry." Sarah nodded. "I appreciate that, Tom. But sorry isn't enough. We have to move forward with respect for everyone here. I'm here to make sure that this is a positive place for both customers and employees, and I expect you to be a part of that." There was a long pause, but eventually, Tom nodded, looking more like the person Sarah had hoped to see. He seemed to understand what was expected of him. "Of course, Sarah," he said quietly. "I'll do better. I promise." Sarah gave him a small smile, feeling the first glimmer of relief. This was a difficult conversation, but it was one that needed to happen. She knew that building a better environment wouldn't be easy, but it was worth it. For the first time since she had arrived at the store, Sarah felt like she was truly beginning to take control of the situation. After her conversation with Tom, Sarah felt a shift in the atmosphere of the store. It wasn't immediate, but she could sense a difference. Tom's attitude seemed to soften, and he started to show more respect to her and the other staff members. The tension that had once filled the store slowly began to fade, replaced by a sense of professionalism. Sarah had set the tone, and now it was time to build on that progress. Over the next few weeks, Sarah worked hard to create a more positive and welcoming environment for both the customers and the employees. She spent time with each of her team members, learning about their strengths, challenges, and how they felt about the store. It was important to her that everyone felt heard and valued. She didn't want to be just a manager who gave orders. She wanted to be someone who inspired change and encouraged collaboration. Tom, though still a little awkward at times, started to adjust. He began to follow Sarah's lead, helping her with the changes she was implementing. He became more open to feedback and seemed genuinely interested in improving the store's atmosphere. While Sarah didn't expect a complete transformation overnight, she could see that he was trying, and that was a good start. One afternoon, as Sarah walked through the store, she noticed something that made her smile. The employees were laughing and chatting with customers in a way that hadn't happened before. There was a warmth in the air, a sense of community that hadn't existed during Tom's previous management. She felt a quiet sense of pride. This was what she had worked for, an environment where people felt respected, valued, and comfortable. As Sarah continued to make improvements, she also noticed something else. Tom was starting to take on more responsibility. He wasn't just following orders. He was offering suggestions, organizing events, and even taking the initiative to train new employees. It was clear that he was stepping up, and Sarah couldn't help but feel a sense of accomplishment. She had been patient with him, giving him the chance to grow, and it seemed to be paying off. One day, as Sarah was meeting with her team to discuss a new promotion, Tom pulled her aside after the meeting. "I just wanted to say thank you," he said, his voice sincere. "I know I haven't always been easy to work with, but I appreciate the chance to do better. You've really helped me change my perspective." Sarah smiled at him, feeling a sense of warmth spread through her. "It's all about learning and growing, Tom. We all make mistakes, but the important thing is that we learn from them." Tom nodded. "I'm glad I got the chance to learn from you. I won't forget it." It was a small moment, but to Sarah, it meant a lot. She had seen Tom go from being distant and uncomfortable to someone who was taking responsibility for his actions and striving to improve. It was a powerful reminder of the importance of leadership and patience. But Sarah knew this was just the beginning. There were still challenges ahead, and she was determined to continue making positive changes. The store had transformed, but there was always room for growth, and Sarah was ready to lead them forward, step by step. Months had passed since Sarah became the regional manager, and things had changed in ways she hadn't imagined. The store was now a much brighter, more welcoming place. Customers walked through the doors with smiles, and employees were more eager to help. Sarah had worked hard to create an environment where everyone felt respected, and it seemed that her efforts were starting to show. Tom, once distant and uncomfortable, had become one of Sarah's strongest allies. He was no longer the same manager who had made judgmental comments or avoided responsibility. He had transformed into a supportive team leader who helped train new staff members and took pride in the work he did. He even went out of his way to ensure the store was running smoothly and that customers were happy. Sarah was proud of the progress he had made. It hadn't been easy, but they had both learned and grown along the way. One afternoon, Sarah stood near the front of the store, watching the employees interact with customers. There was a warmth in the air, a sense of community that she hadn't seen before. The shelves were neatly stocked, the store was clean, and the atmosphere felt inviting. It was the kind of place she had always hoped it could be. She had worked tirelessly to build this environment, but it wasn't just her work. It was the work of every employee who had contributed to making the store a better place. As Sarah walked around, she stopped to chat with a few of the employees. She asked them how they were doing and whether they had any ideas for improving the store. She wanted them to feel comfortable sharing their thoughts and suggestions, knowing that their opinions mattered. One of the employees, a young woman named Emily, approached her with a smile. "Sarah, I just wanted to say thank you for everything," Emily said, her voice filled with appreciation. "The store has really changed since you've been here. It feels like a team now, not just a place where we work. It's nice to come in every day." Sarah smiled warmly at Emily. "I'm glad you feel that way. We're all part of the team, and everyone's input matters. We're in this together." Tom, who had been standing nearby, overheard their conversation. He walked over to Sarah with a slight smile. "You've done a great job, Sarah," he said. "The store feels different now, better. I can't believe how much things have changed since you took over." Sarah nodded, grateful for his kind words. "We've all worked hard, Tom. But it's not just about the store. It's about the people who work here. I'm proud of all of you." As the day went on, Sarah reflected on everything that had happened since she first walked into the store as the new manager. It had been a journey full of challenges, but it had also been incredibly rewarding. She had faced difficult moments, including her awkward encounter with Tom, but she had also seen growth, both in herself and in the people around her. Looking back, Sarah knew that standing up for herself and taking the job had been the right decision. She had not only made a positive impact on the store, but also helped create a culture where people could feel valued and respected. It wasn't just about the products on the shelves or the sales at the register. It was about the people who worked there, the customers who came in, and the way everyone treated one another. The store had become a place where respect and kindness were at the forefront, and Sarah felt proud of the role she had played in making that happen. There would always be room for growth, but for now, Sarah could finally see the change she had worked so hard for, and it felt good.